in the PMBOK guide, the current 7th edition of the PMBOK guide, there's 12 principles that we, as a project manager, you need to understand. And again, it's not the tactical side of it. So if you think about it, the project manager, is responsible for the collaboration of teams. You have to have that knowledge on how to bring people together and different cultures, different locations, managing those teams. And that is a skill that's needed, and you need to recognize that that's part of your role. We had the whole conversation of value, and so the project manager needs to make sure the team is focused on those outcomes, is focused on delivering value to the organization, and not just saying, I'm going to follow this step, this step, this step, this step, and expect everything to be perfect at the end, right?
It's important that you have all the rowers have visibility into the direction that you're rowing, and you're not just rowing, right? So that
absolutely, absolutely, yeah.
I mean, those are some soft leadership skills that are, take time to develop.
Yeah, absolutely. And complexity, the concept, and you brought it up, Steve. It's not easy, and there's so many moving parts in most projects that there's a complexity that the project manager always has to kind of keep their ear to the ground, or their eyes looking out as to what's going on, and adapt and adjust based on that situation. And that's not a tangible thing per se to learn. That comes with, applying and learning and experiencing and failing, and, to understand how those complexities, can play out in a project and be able to respond. That's part of your risk management that you be doing. Systems thinking, it's a holistic view. Get up in the helicopter, look at everything. Most of our projects we're working on are complex. So you have to kind of take a lot of feedback, a lot of inputs to determine how to manage through any diversity or hiccups, or what I like to call them speed bumps, because there will be, right? Stewardship. I like this one from the perspective that it's about caring. It's about having integrity. I've been in some organizations where the organization cares about the customer. They say they care about the customer, but that scenes, it doesn't seem that way. Or, so I'm always of the opinion that there has to be a purpose to what we're doing, and there has to be a benefit to what we're doing. And everybody has to kind of align to that and agree with that, and not have other agendas that are not heartfelt. So stewardship is a really important one to me.
Definitely. I mean, you got the company needs to come first, and then your people, and there's like a hierarchy to that.
Right. And honesty.
Oh yeah.
It's like I said, I've seen people hide things, and what ultimately happens, it ends up being very obvious that they're hiding things, or they're saying something and they really don't mean it. So it's that humility, honesty, that helps build trust. And if you can build trust within your own organization and trust with your customers, then that will go a long way to being a very successful project manager. If anybody that's studying for their project management exam, risk is one of those things. We've had several webinars on it. You got to constantly be assessing the risks that are going on and determining whether it's a risk that you need to respond to. Within Project Insight, we capture, those risks, and we expect project managers to be constantly monitoring those risks, because they will change.
Yeah, and definitely, being able to have them articulated somewhere is really important. A lot of times people will discuss what the risks are, but maybe they don't end up writing them down anywhere.
Right.
And then, if the other problem is that, that discussion sometimes is just at the beginning of the project and then not throughout the project. And we've talked about that before, where you have to constantly reassess your risks.
I always like to use the it's an anecdote, but when the Mars rover landed on Mars the first time, and it was on that big bubble, and the bubble collapsed, and the rover, they were ready to send the rover on its little mission across Mars. The program manager came onto the news, and this really highlighted to me. He goes, "We retired a lot of risk today."
Yeah.
Doesn't mean risk is gone. Just certain risks are no longer a risk because it's there. Yeah. Now they're going to focus on the whole next set of risks. So it is an ongoing conversation that you have to have within your project. Mm-hmm. Tailoring. I don't know if we want to do by a show of hands, or, how many people think that there is ever the possibility to have the same project done twice? Every project's unique, right? Right? Has anybody had the exact same project twice and been able to totally rinse and repeat the entire project from start to finish? Never. So the principle of tailoring is really key. You might have projects that you've done before that are similar in nature, but every time you do them, there's different things. And one of the big things is the people, which goes back to the teams concept, right? I'm dealing with a new set of people, new client, new team members. How am I going to get them rallied around this objective and move this project forward? So tailoring is another principle that every project manager needs to consider. And this one's fun. Do projects create change?
Well,
yes.
Of course. It's a breathing thing, right? I don't know. I feel like, I think everything is, right?
Yeah. Well, the outcome is going to be something new, right? Yeah. So now you have to think about that impact to the operations on what's new to them, and what does that mean to them, and how hard it will be for them to change. Think about your phone and doing Instagram. I'm not an Instagram person. I have an Instagram account. I got that far. And I think I've posted maybe 4 pictures. But, there's those that adopt it really fast, and those of us, unless I see a real reason to, do I change that fast? So you have to consider, your audience. Stakeholders. Again, a whole big concept within the project management body of knowledge is just really understanding your stakeholders and understanding what their objectives are, and figuring out whether or not they're going to participate in your project. And if not, and then how do you deal with that? We've had the whole concept of the engaged stakeholders, which is the one that we want, but you might have a disengaged or a disinterested stakeholder.
Right.
Or maybe one that doesn't want your project, because that's still a stakeholder. The outcome might be very negative to that person, and they don't want your project. So that is a stakeholder. So you have to consider all that.
I think the stakeholder is just one of the most underrated aspects. It's not underrated, but really sometimes you get so caught up in getting everything done that if you're not managing your stakeholders very well, that can lead to all kinds of quote unquote change. Another problem.
Well, that's when you see, if you get to the end and all of a sudden they say, this isn't what I want, and we're not signing off on it, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And bottom line, every project manager is a leader. You're leading a team. You're leading part of the organization. You're leading an initiative. You are responsible for the success of that initiative or that part of that strategy. So you are a leader, and knowing how to lead and having those kinds of skills really helps you succeed, or your organization succeed.
Yeah, definitely. I think if all of your project, you could spend a lot of time. You can spend a whole career just on leadership skills, because if those skills are better developed, then it's just going to help you in all these other aspects. So you can't. Definitely spend time on learning more leadership skills, refining your skills, checking your skills. All those things I think are really valuable.
Yeah, I like to put in the context of always be curious. What makes people tick? How do I help somebody get more motivated? Because I'm not going to be able to motivate them, right? Yeah, I took I'm always taking little classes, and I took a personality class, which was really, really interesting, because it really ties, that personality starts at the womb, right? And you might be able to change somebody's personality a little bit, but you're not going to totally change it to something opposite. So having that perspective is really important. So to your point, Steve, yeah, just keep looking out there for ways to improve your knowledge, improve your leadership skills. And then that ends up bringing quality to your project, right?
Yeah. And then, as noted, we have a webinar on just that coming up later in this series for another PDU down the road. So
cool.
More details on that.
Yep. And quality, without a lot of this other stuff, you're not going to deliver on quality, because quality is about staying focused on the objectives and delivering to the expectations that are for that project. And then last but not least, adaptability and resiliency.
Yeah.
As a project manager,
you're going to need a lot of that.
It's exhausting at times. It's rewarding many times, but it's kind of self-rewarding, because we've always said it's like when the project team wins, they do well, the project manager gives credit to the team, as they should. But when something goes wrong, the project manager has to raise their hand and say, I own this, and I'm gonna, help fix it. And that's where, you have to be adaptable, you have to be resilient, because that will happen. It may be small, but it could also be big. And just recognize that having these kinds of skills will make you a very successful project manager. And so all of these 12 components, all these principles, they're bodies of knowledge unto themselves. So it's a lot to learn. It's a lot to learn. It's a lot to experience. And I think the lesson learned there is don't be afraid of your gray hairs, because
well, we call these, this is what we've been talking about. Like, we call these all the superpowers. These are your superpowers as a project manager. This is what's going to help you be successful, which will help your organization be successful, your clients, your team. Really spending time on all of these aspects of the job. And quite honestly, a project manager's job is probably one of the more difficult, because you have to have so much breadth to be able to get your arms around all these different skills and do them on a day-to-day basis. So you guys should be proud of the job that you're doing. Without project managers, a lot of things wouldn't happen.
Right. And you notice there's not even a tile in here about knowing the industry. That's another whole area of knowledge.
Knowledge. Serious.
Right? Knowledge. You got to have lots and lots of knowledge to be successful. But that's what makes it exciting. And, you never have the same day twice. I always tell people, I said, my personality is, if I had to do the same thing every single day, I would be so bored.
Yeah. We're going to ask the audience to chat in the chat, which superpower is your number one, or
that's a good
top
one.
three. Definitely have if anyone wants to throw it in there and go for it.
Let us know what your superpowers is. We'll ask Matt to give us a assessment at the end here.
Well, and what's your best skill, you think?
I was just going to say, I was going to drill the two of you while we're going to ask the audience. What do you guys think?
Mine?
Yeah.
Well, it's probably the adaptability and resiliency, or systems thinking, because I do like to get up in the helicopter and really kind of make sure we're tracking.
I think for me, I'm a systems or process guy, probably number one skill. Just kind of comes naturally. The other skills, just because you're really great at one doesn't mean that you don't have other skills. But I would say for me, being able to kind of systems thinking or process thinking, and that's why I'm in software. So there you go.
There you go.